You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. A lot going on in the Mammoth world at the moment. Let's talk about it with our good friend. He makes his appearance weekly on the show. He's our good buddy Nick Olczyk, part of the the Mammoth broadcast, radio, TV. He does it all, and he's nice enough to jump on with us. What's up, Nick?
Jake and Ben, great to be with you guys. A hell of a start for the Mammoth here at the beginning of the season, and for those that may not have known, I'm sure we'll get into it, but some big news for a young fella here on the squad lately. So an exciting time, and it's kind of crazy. We got 4 days off from the last game until the next game, something that's pretty rare this year considering the condensed schedule because of the Olympic break in February. But lots to talk about, and always happy to join you guys.
Nick, it is pretty amazing to look at the standings in the Western Conference right now, and the Mammoth are sitting atop with 16 points. They're tied with the Avalanche. They're just ahead of the Golden Knights. But 8-3-0, largely because of how successful this road trip was. Outside of a pretty difficult second period against the Oilers, they have just been playing lights out. What have you seen from the team?
Yeah, I just think there's such great combination on this roster right now of the mix. And by the mix, I'm talking about the roster makeup, and that's the concoction of Bill Armstrong, Utah Mammoth general manager, and his staff for putting together a team that has the mixture of old guys, and by old guys, I mean experienced guys, with some young players that are really trying to break through and come into their own as they get more experience in the National Hockey League. And it's such a delicate balance to strike because if you have too much of one, you're going to be lacking in different areas. But you think about the likes of Ian Cole, still very much it's such an important part to this team's defense core, guy that's won a Stanley Cup ×2. But still there being plenty of space and room for a guy like Dmitry Simashev at 20 years old who has not at all looked out of place. So when you talk about the great start, the first thing I look towards is how the roster is constructed. And in terms of games played, the seventh least experienced forward group, while you've got the seventh most experienced defense core in terms of total games played and experience in the National Hockey League. So I feel like that's a great mix for when you're going to go through this 82-game grind and through 11 games to be sitting third in the National Hockey League. It's special because there's been great starts from important pieces. Dylan Guenther's gotten off to a fantastic start. Same you could say for Logan Cooley and Mikhail Sergachev, especially lately. And, oh, by the way, the guys in net who you have needed to be the backbone and will continue to need to be the backbone. I know the tough second period in Edmonton, including a couple of unbelievable bounces that the Oilers got. But overall, everybody seems to be clicking on the same wavelength. And for this team that plays fast, that's creative, that relies on their young guys and it doesn't hide them, it's been a special time, but it just feels like everything right now is clicking on all cylinders. I know these guys are excited to get back home for an afternoon game on Sunday and then right back out on the road for a couple games out east and into Eastern Canada.
Nick, so you brought up the Logan Cooley signing, which obviously is a big deal this week, and I thought the press conference was really fascinating, and Ryan Smith saying, and he said this before, but reaffirming, they're all in. They're going to, commit the resources that they need to commit. And he also talked about how nice it is in the NHL to be able to build long-term around some of these guys. Of course, we know Dylan Guenther. So I guess my question is, talk about that process of building long-term. But my other part of the question is, if Ryan weren't committed financially, and I'm not trying to necessarily throw the previous ownership under the bus, but because there are other, I'm sure NHL organizations that run it on the cheap, what is the alternative? What do they do with these guys? Like build them up and ship them off? Or, it just seems like investing long-term is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I think it's for sure a case where you just had to get this done. And for a guy that was chosen third overall back in 2022 and has been a stud probably ever since he put on skates since he was a young guy, those are the types of deals that no matter what, whether you're an owner that has a lot and these guys have a lot and is willing to spend it or not, when you have a franchise number one center, you got to find a way to get the deal locked up. And with where the salary cap is going, it's only going to continue to increase. It sounds like the predicted cap is going to be blown through the roof in terms of the next couple of years. This was a deal that did it take a little longer? Yeah, but you kind of knew that it was going to get done. And when you have an owner like Ryan Smith, like his wife Ashley Smith too, these two have made it very clear from day one that they are going to put the Mammoth in the best position possible to succeed. And when that's the case, you look at all the successful teams throughout NHL history and recent memory that have won Stanley Cups, aside from a great goalie and a solid defense core, the number one commonality between those teams is that you have got a star-stud number one center. You think of the days when the LA Kings were the best team in the league. They had Anze Kopitar. When you look at the Bruins, they had Patrice Bergeron, the Chicago Blackhawks, Jonathan Toews, so on and so forth. You need to have that star number one center. And while Logan Cooley maybe isn't 6'3", 220 pounds, that's going to go out and play more of a grinding style, he has something that only one other player has in this league in terms of maximum speed this year. Looking at the NHL Edge tracking data, there's only one player that has skated faster than him, and that's Connor McDavid in terms of a maximum speed this year. So when you build through and with players that have skill sets that are the top 1% of the league, that's going to lead to success for a long time. So whether it's the unbelievably hockey rink in a Ritz-Carlton type of practice facility down in Sandy, or the renovations at Delta Center, or proving that they want young guys to want to be here and they're going to show up for them on the financial side. And that's one thing you can never knock Ryan Smith for anything in terms of especially his willingness to lock up young players and show them that for as much as the player wants to be here, the city, the state, the team, the organization wants them to be here. And I'll tell you what, with where the cap is going, $10 million sounds like a lot right now. And yes, 2 times a month starting next year, there's going to be a noise that Logan is going to hear in his driveway, and it's going to be beep, beep, beep. That's the Brinks truck backing up into his driveway twice a month. The investment from ownership and Ryan Smith has been spectacular, and that's the type of guy that you want to build around.
So you touched on it there, and I'm curious, it's kind of a two-part question. A, is $10 million just too much for a player like Logan Cooley, or what does he have to do to prove that he's worth it? And then B, does the fact that Dylan Guenther barely makes over $7 million a year make it maybe even a little easier to swallow that those two guys are locked up for $17 million total over the next decade, basically?
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy because of the time of which those two contracts were signed. I think we've got a little bit better idea of where the cap is going to go. And so when you try to predict this out into the next couple of years and with where the cap is going, where Logan's going to be, at about under that 10% of the cap in terms of his average annual value, it's one of those things that it's based on timing. It's also what the player wants. I mean, there is no question that Dylan Guenther contract looks little over $7 million. That's a ton of money. And considering the term and length at which Dylan Guenther signed it, he's going to get another heck of a deal when he's in his late 20s. But for Logan Cooley, is $10 million too much? No, because I think that's the going rate for a franchise center. It wasn't all that long ago that, and it's not to say Logan Cooley isn't the best player in the league. He's certainly, hoping to become that one day, but it wasn't all that long ago that the likes of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews, those guys that have been doing it for a long time, when those guys were in that $9 to $10 million range, and now you see a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, the the most wealthy contract in NHL history. He's making $17 a year. So when you're talking about a young franchise center who is signing his first big ticket, when you're talking about 8 years, $80 million total at an AAV, average annual value of $10 million, that is the going rate. And so I think for everybody involved, it's great to see that the deal done. And it was funny how Bill had hinted at the press conference there the other day that the deal had been done for a little while, and perhaps maybe going into that road trip is when it was done. And you see what Logan did on the score sheet, seemingly putting up a couple of points each and every game. So look, that's a lot of money. I don't care what sport you're playing, and hockey players compared to other sports are it's not even the same structure in terms of the star in the league getting paid, in some other leagues, what a guy on the bench would be getting paid. But that's a lot of money for a young kid, and Logan is such a mature young man. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and so a well-deserved payday for him. But the one thing and I've had the chance to be around him a little bit and talk to him at the rink, he's not the type of guy that says, okay, I cashed my check and now I can mail it in. He's going to continue to work even harder and prove that he is one of the best young centers in the entire National Hockey League.
Now, Nick, I know you are an optimist at heart, so this may be difficult. But, Mike, everybody's riding high about the Mammoth right now. If they were to not achieve their goals or their standards, what would that be? What is maybe the shortfall of this team?
It's a hard question because of what they've shown us to this point. And also what the standards and expectations are, which is to make the playoffs this year. But as you know, anything can happen over the course of a season. But honestly, yes, eternal optimist, no doubt, but also very much a realist too. And if I really look at this team through those realist lenses, the mix of the roster, where this team and organization is at in their build to try to become a consistent playoff team and a Stanley Cup contender one day, I don't know if there's room to even think about, okay, well, what if? Okay, if they don't make the playoffs, then okay, there's going to be more work needed to be done this summer, and no question, General Manager Bill Armstrong is going to be all over that. But from what I see on a day-to-day basis with the roster, with the coaching, and head coach Andre Tourigny and having such a heartbeat of the team and knowing what buttons to push and knowing his players as well as he does. If when we're speaking in ifs here, if they don't make the playoffs, okay, well that means that something went awry and certain additions or subtractions need to be made to the roster, but or the way that they do things. But with the start that they've gotten off to, just having come off a 7-game win streak, and it was one rough period after they played a pretty darn good first period where they were up 2-0 against a team that's been to the Stanley Cup final the last 2 years, that being the Edmonton Oilers. If standards and expectations aren't met, the one thing that I have seen on a day-to-day basis with this organization is that they're going to not middle in mediocrity. They are going to make the changes and do what they need to do in order to reach and exceed the expectations that have been set forth. So still early in the year. And the one thing I think that has really stood out to me is the comments from Andre Tourigny and the players when asked about the winning streak and, oh my gosh, the streak is over. What are you going to do now? Is the sky falling? No, they said they're not going to get too high when you win games, and you can't get too low when you lose games, because the reality is that early in the year, whether you win 15 in a row or whether you lose 15 in a row, you can't make the playoffs early in the year, but you can certainly dig yourself a hole. And if it was the latter, losing a bunch, okay, then now there's some room for panic. But this team's sitting top 3 in the National Hockey League right now, so there is a lot of reason for optimism. But knowing that, yes, there was a 7-game win streak, at some point there's going to be a pothole, and it's about how this group can battle through those moments. And that's why at the very beginning of the interview, you talk about older guys, experienced players, veterans. When the dog days of the season come or you go through a rough patch, that's where you got to rely on them. But look, it's an unbelievable start to the year for this team. A lot of excitement around the Mammoth, rightfully so. And looking forward to getting back at it on Sunday against a team that maybe hasn't had the best start, but is still one of the premier franchises in the National Hockey League, that being the Tampa Bay Lightning.
If they hit the pothole that you're talking about, I'm blaming Dominic Moore. I'm blaming Dom. It's Dom's fault.
Why are you blaming Dom?
We need more Nick Olczyk on the broadcast. Dom's stepping all over you.
No, we got a hell of a crew, guys. I mean, I'm not only honored and so fortunate to be part of this organization, but to get a chance to work with Matty McConnell, who's I think been calling games since the TVs were black and white, and
Original
and Dom
Six
Moore
broadcaster, yeah.
And Dom Moore having the incredible career that he did, and Kim Becker in the studio, and Sarah Merrifield reporting, and Mikey Folt on the radio. We got a great crew, so it's always a ton of fun.
What are you going to be for Halloween, Nick?
You know what? I've always been a hockey player. But
Easy for you.
This year, I'm actually planning on Halloween to be at Delta Center. There's kind of a 2-day WWE experience going on. So we got Friday night SmackDown on Halloween, and then on the 1st, it's Saturday night's main event. I'm a big WWE guy. Grew up with it, and try to watch it and follow it as much as I can now. So those are my plans. Maybe I'll be dressing up in some jorts and be like John Cena at the wrestling event. So we'll see.
Mick Foley, yeah. Throw on the old lumberjack and get out there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Is Jake the Snake still a guy?
He is, yeah. He's still like the number one guy.
Still is?
Yeah, he's still top of the game.
That's a run.
Yep, he is, yeah.
That's a run.
Since the early 90s, he's really going.
Nick Olczyk, we are a big fan of yours. Thank you for jumping
Nick.
on with us, man. We appreciate it.
Right back at you, boys. Always happy to help, and you guys have a great rest of the day. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Nick.